Blog Talk Radio.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot, oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girlz. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here are your supernatural hosts, Patricia Baker and Becky Andreasen. Supernatural Girlz.
Welcome, everyone, to Supernatural Girlz Radio. I am your host, Patricia Baker, and I am here with my co-host tonight. It is Patricia Kirkman. Hi, Patricia. How are you tonight?
Well, I'm just doing all kinds of wonderful things. I'm so excited about tonight's show.
Oh, good. And I am, too. You know, it feels so good to get back on the air live, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. I kind of like missing a friend by not being available.
I know it. I know. Well, we had our 2 weeks off during the holidays, and we ran a couple of our favorite shows for people to listen to. But it just feels wonderful to be back tonight. So I got to tell you, though, I'm very jealous of you because it is going to be minus 12 here this evening. And I know you're in lovely, sunny Tucson, where, what is it, 70?
It was today, but it wasn't a few days ago, so we have a few frosted plants in the yard, but outside of the fact New Year's Day we had snow, we haven't seen any since.
Oh, gosh. Well, again, I'm sitting in front of a roaring fire here because it's windy and it's cold, and I hope I do stay on the air because we may lose power, but hopefully not. Hopefully we'll be okay because we've got a great show tonight. Gosh.
Oh, I'm excited about it.
I know. This is a fabulous guest. We have Eileen McKusick, who's going to be coming on, and she's the author of Tuning the Human Biofield, Healing with Vibrational Sound Therapy. And, oh, my goodness, she's going to be talking about some terrific ways for us to heal ourselves with sound and how she discovered this, because she's a true pioneer in this field of sound healing.
It's going to be marvelous, because we have so many things that we know are available to us, but every time we come up with something new that, well, it's not really new, it's new for us, but she has done a beautiful job of putting this together for us.
She
Absolutely
really has.
Fabulous.
Yes, she really has. The book is excellent. Of course, it's available on Amazon.com and probably in your local bookstores, but it is a great read, and it's so important because it's empowering to read this and see exactly how vibration and sound is affecting us, how things get stuck in our field. So I can't wait to bring her on. But I wanted to mention a couple things. First, wanted to say Becky Andreasen is doing absolutely terrifically. I mean, she has beaten this cancer thing. God bless her. She's just had another appointment today, and I think her cancer numbers are going to be about down to zero. So she's doing great. Just great. Yeah, isn't that great? And so she is.
That's uplifting, isn't it, to hear such
It's so
good
nice
news.
to hear. She was just given 2 months to live, and here we are, 7, 8 months later, and she's cancer-free. So very exciting news for her, and we're still going to be doing healing circles and prayers because Helene's facing some health issues, and so we're going to be doing a healing prayer circle for Helene and for everybody in our audience to start this new year off. So we will be doing that. I will announce a date and a time so everyone will know. And it'll be the same kind of thing where everybody will just tune into our show and we'll lead the healing circle from there. So it'll be very, very soothing, very exciting in its own way, and this healing energy will go out to everybody, your friends, your relatives, your loved ones, anybody who needs healing. So I'll be sure to put that on the website and send it out in a newsletter so people can join the group when we have it. So that'll be fun to do. And also, again, isn't that a great way to start the year to extend healing to other people?
Oh, good news for sure. Definitely good news.
Yes, yes. And now tell us, because you are the numerology expert, and this has already started out to be an interesting year, but what is coming up for us tomorrow?
Well, if you take a look at what's happening tomorrow, it's a day when people are going to be very concerned about their finances. That is the umbrella of the year we're in, dealing with finances being in control. But this month, the month of January, gives us an opportunity to kind of kick out the door anything old. So let's get those little bills that are laying there out of the way. Anything that we want to take care of, get it dusted off and out, so that when February comes, we are off and running like we're going to the Preakness.
I'm ready for the Preakness. I really am. Oh, this is good. And then we were going to talk a little bit about, since we're starting off the new year, 2015, with healing. Tell us about healing and numbers.
Well, one of the things that I find very fascinating is that every number represents a part of the body. Now, if we have an overabundance of these numbers in our chart, we'll have a certain element that will work with it. If we are shy some of these numbers, we may find that we have more of a problem with these numbers. But when we're looking at things, think in terms of this. The number 4 and the number 6 represent health. And 4 is conventional health, 6 is alternative health.
Oh,
makes it
how
very
about that?
interesting.
That is interesting.
And if we look at the numbers, every number has a part of the body that it takes over. Like the number 1 deals with head, headaches, eyes, nose, mouth, teeth, etc. And it gives us opportunity to really go forward. The 2 deals with parts of speech like the throat and the neck, bladder as well. But 3 deals with our nervous system, indigestions, migraines, ulcers, white blood cell issues, throat and lungs. 4 deals with the lungs, stomach, liver, gallbladder, skin, general areas all over the body where bones are concerned. 5 is nerves, heart, blood, and circulation. 6 deals with chronic conditions, alternative issues, and digestion. 7 is emotional and the kidneys. 8 is the reproductive organs, color, and bowels. And 9, feet and all areas where disease is hard to control, meaning the overall well-being. So how's that for a breakdown for the body?
That's great, Patricia. Thank you so much for that. That's wonderful information. I had no idea that all numbers corresponded to a part of the body. That's amazing.
Well, I think what I also find is very amazing. If we're missing a certain number within our chart, that's a weak link, and we'll find that those areas may be more involved with some of these issues. Not necessarily, and I don't always think it's to the worst degree. It just that gives us a direction. And every one of our personal years also has that directional number that we deal with. So if we just take a look at who we are, what we're missing, and what year we're in, we can pretty well stay ahead of some of the things. And then when we take a look at our lovely young lady tonight with her book, The Vibrational Elements, wow, what we can really do with everything.
Yes, this is really fascinating. I mean, it's a great preamble to introducing Eileen. And before we go to do that, I just wanted to mention to everyone, we still do book giveaways, and we will be doing more book giveaways. So in order to be a part of that, you have to go to our website, which is supernaturalgirlz.com, and sign up. And that way you can be entered to win a book. And we've given away quite a few books over the last 6 months or so, and we're going to continue to do that. And tonight I am going to be giving away a copy of Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. And the reason I'm giving it away now is because, especially for people in Massachusetts, and this may be true for you in other states, you only have 30 days to look at your property record card, make sure it's accurate, and file that abatement. If you don't meet that deadline, you are done. So please take a look at your property record cards, make sure they're accurate. Get Patricia Quintilian's book and sign up on the website to win it, because it is a wonderful step-by-step of how to handle this, how to fight for your rights, how to make sure you're being assessed correctly, which often is not the case. So we need to look out for ourselves here. And you talk about, it's all about money coming up for tomorrow, loose ends. This is a loose end. And I find more people scrutinize their grocery bill than they scrutinize their tax bill. And they are missing out. So this is the month. You are basically given 30 days, and it's going to come up fast. So make sure that you do what you need to do to protect your rights, make sure that everything is right as it should be. And get Patricia's book. It's also a great read. It's very funny and sad. It's emotional. It's an emotional book on property taxes, but it is very entertaining and it is very informative. So tonight I'll be giving that book away to some lucky person who signs up on the website, and we will be giving away more books, and we're going to have other contests and things like that. As you know, Patricia, we're so excited because we're getting our own app on iPhone and Android,
That's wonderful,
too.
Isn't it? I am so excited. I can't wait for you to call and say, it's here.
I know. I can't wait either. Well, we picked out the artwork, and I know the guys and gals are working on it. So I'm hoping we'll see that in the next couple of weeks. We'll have a whole new advertising platform for everybody and a way for our audience to keep in touch with us in real time, and we can respond in real time. And we can also, we're going to have this up 24/7. So it's a great way to continue to build our supernatural community. So that's coming up. Coming up, everybody. Stay tuned. And now, here is the exciting part of the show where we introduce our guest. Our guest is Eileen McKusick. She has researched the effects of audible sound in the human body and its biofield since 1996. Eileen has a master's degree in integrative education and is currently pursuing a Ph.D. in integral health. She teaches privately and at Johnson State College and maintains a therapy practice in Stowe, Vermont. And her book is Tuning the Human Biofield, Healing with Vibrational Sound Therapy. So let's get Eileen on the show. I'm trying to bring her live right now. Eileen, welcome to Supernatural Girlz.
Hi, thanks.
It's great to have you with us. What a wonderful book you've written, and you're such a pioneer. It's amazing what you've done with this.
Yeah, it's been an adventure.
Well, you know, what really struck me about this book as I was reading this over the last few days is that you have not had an easy time. It's like you've had challenge after challenge with your early life, with your family, with a restaurant. I mean, you really had to rise to the occasion more than once.
Mm-hmm. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Well, yes, but my goodness, you have really been through a lot. And I mean, I read this and I was like, I can understand this. And yet, you know, it didn't keep you down. You kept moving forward and until you came to this beautiful point of helping other people with healing.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a really rewarding thing to be able to do. To turn around and be like, whew, okay, I got, to this place of, relative equanimity, and then to be able to support other people to go there is a good thing.
What would you say your biggest challenge was growing up and getting to this place? What was your biggest challenge?
Well, I was the youngest of 6 kids. My mom had 5 kids in 6 years, and then she had me 6 years later. So I sort of had a pack of older siblings and teenagers, and I got picked on and teased a lot. And I'm a very sensitive person. As I sort of discovered through this work, I have sort of an extreme level of vibrational sensitivity, and I was always told that I was too sensitive. And, like it was some kind of disease or something, some kind of ailment to be too sensitive. So I heard that a lot growing up, and I think that I had to learn to kind of, defend myself and sort of develop a thick skin. And then I skipped 2 grades and was the littlest and youngest one at school, too. So I went through my whole sort of childhood and teenagehood sort of at the bottom of the pecking order, with my poor little sensitive self getting picked on. So that was a lot to kind of overcome, and then to open back up to and embrace my sensitivity and actually learn to make a living with it, was definitely not the easiest thing, but certainly a worthwhile pursuit to figure it out.
Well, again, sounds like, you know what it's like to feel bullied, and you know what it's like to feel like you're being left out, and some of these very uncomfortable feelings that many of us have experienced early in life, and it does leave an imprint.
Mm-hmm. And, too, I think for those of us who have sort of an esoteric bent, there can be that sort of feeling like you're kind of a freak. If you're into esoteric things, or that sort of you're aligned more to the spiritual nature of life. It's a pretty materialistic world, and I think that there is, for a lot of people, a sense of isolation that goes along, if you're inclined that way.
Yeah, and it seems like this isolation is getting more profound in so many ways. I think with the Internet and with the way we communicate today, it is so much easier to isolate.
Mm-hmm. Very definitely. You watch it when you go out to dinner. People are sitting at a table, 4 or 5 people at a table, and they're all sitting there working on their phones or texting, etc. People don't communicate anymore.
Yeah.
Scary.
It's very impersonal in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, and we really all yearn for and need a sense of connection. I think that that's such an important part of healing is connecting, and that's really a big part of what's missing. And so that's a big part of what I look at addressing, it's what I call this sort of cosmology of separation that we live in. And, what's the antidote to that? So
you discovered this new, old form of healing with tuning forks. So tell us about how this happened. How did this come to be?
Well, I started off sort of my professional career in the restaurant business. I started waitressing when I was 16, and then came up with the idea to start a family restaurant, a cafe, and we did that. My mother and 2 of my older brothers and I opened a cafe in Pomfret, Connecticut called the Vanilla Bean Cafe in 1989, and we started off with just 16 seats and the 4 of us, and within 4 years we had 140 seats and we had 32 employees. And
my goodness.
We had grown like mad, and I worked 100-hour weeks, like week after week after week, standing over the sandwich bar, standing over the stove, standing over the dishwasher, standing over the mop bucket. And I ruined my back. I developed in terrible back pain. I had excruciating temporomandibular joint, TMJ syndrome. I was getting shooting pains through my head and up around my ears. I was completely adrenally burned out and stressed. Basically I was like burnt toast. And I had been interested in holistic health and wellness since I was a teenager, and I was always kind of had a book on the subject, and I was thinking, maybe I want to be a naturopath at some point, but I didn't want to go to school for that long. So I decided to go to massage therapy school. So I bailed on the family restaurant. After coming up with this idea and putting us all through this epic struggle to grow this restaurant, I have to throw in the towel. This is killing me. And I went to massage therapy school. And that was really a wonderful experience. If any of your listeners have been to massage therapy school, it's a really nurturing, just wonderful thing to do. And it helped my back and it helped my nerves. And after a year of sort of taking a break, I went back to the restaurant, but I didn't want to just dissolve in it again. And so I kept a little massage therapy practice sort of going on the side. And I kept reading. I love to read. I've always been a big reader. I'm really a researcher by nature. When I get interested in a particular subject, I'll read everything I can find on that subject. And somehow or other, I ended up with a book on the use of color and sound and music in healing. And I came across this after I had been reading, what I call pop quantum physics, this sort of notion that everything is vibration, everything is frequency. And I thought, well, if everything is ultimately just vibration and frequency, then treating vibration with vibration makes sense. It just seems very logical. If I'm just a frequency packet, then treating me with frequency is logical and elegant. And so I went out and I got every book I could find on the subject, and this was back in 1996. And I think I had just gotten to the end of my stack when I got a catalog in the mail. It was a Gaiam catalog that had a set of tuning forks for healing in it. And it was a set of tuning forks called the Solar Harmonic Spectrum, which is just the C major scale. And I was like, oh, look at that, sound healing. So I ordered them, and I had some clients in my massage therapy practice that I felt comfortable enough with to say, hey, will you be a guinea pig? Can I experiment with these with you? And so when I first started using the forks, I really thought that I was going to activate the tuning fork and it was going to produce an objective sound. It was just going to be an input. What I didn't expect was that the tone changed as I kind of moved it around, people's bodies, sort of I'd activate it and hold it maybe 6 inches, a foot away, and just kind of move it around. The tone would change in pitch and volume and timbre. Sometimes it would go really soft, in other places it would go really loud. In some places it would sound like it was full of static. So I really didn't expect that. But what I discovered was, if I found an area that was full of static and I just hung out there for a while, that the tone would clear and it wouldn't sound full of static anymore. So that was something I noticed, that it seemed like the tone seemed to be interfacing with whatever was going on in the body. The other thing that I discovered, which is really the basis of my practice, was this curious phenomenon that, the forks work with the chakra system. So I'm sure most of your listeners know what chakras are.
Right.
And they said you use the note of C over the root chakra, D over the second, E over the third, and so on up to the crown where you use B. And so, I'd approach the root chakra with the C fork, and I'd be sort of moving around in that area, the sort of lower abdomen, and listening. And I would find something like a loud spot, but it would be maybe off over the right hip. And I discovered that I could actually move these loud spots, which I kind of figured there's more energy there. That's why it's louder. And I was like, well, if there's going to be more energy anywhere, it should probably be over the chakra and not hanging out over the right hip. And so just like you can use a magnet to move iron filings, I found that I could use the tuning fork to move the loud spots. And so I developed this little technique that I called click, drag, and drop, where I would find loud spots and then I would just drag them to the closest chakra and drop it in. And there was almost this feeling like it would be sucked back into the body. And then it would sound loud over the chakra. And so I developed this little practice of, going up the body and centering it and hanging out in any places that sounded staticky. And what started happening was people would say to me, all that pain in my shoulder went away, or I haven't had any anxiety this week, or my digestion is so much better, and then they'd say, can you use the tuning forks again? And so in very short order, my massage practice just kind of morphed into a tuning fork practice, and that's how it got started.
Well, it's such a simple process of sound, but yet you have really turned it into a detailed map of the body, and anything's possible, it looks like, when you start using these tuning forks with people.
Mm-hmm. Well, so the process evolved because for many years I did it just very part-time. Back in the 90s and really even in the early 2000s, if I was telling people that I was using tuning forks for healing, there was so much skepticism and even derision and snarkiness around it, and I was kind of embarrassed because I'm really practical and really logical and, really grounded and efficiency oriented. And I'm people were perceiving me as some kind of woo-woo new age healer. I didn't want to be that, I'm not that. So I just did it on the side, just sort of as a hobby for maybe 10 years. But one day,
you paid very close attention to everything you were doing. I mean, what I was amazed about with your book is how you clearly were paying attention to not just the results that were coming out of this, but the pathway that created them. I mean, you're able to reconstruct that in the book, which I found so helpful. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, because what happened was a pattern emerged that I really didn't expect to find. And the way that pattern emerged, it emerged in a couple different ways. So one is that, you know how express emotion. So, if somebody plays a minor third, there's this sort of universal sense that it evokes sadness. So you can go play a minor third to like Kalahari Bushmen, who don't have that musical scale, but they'll go, oh, that sounds sad, right? So there's a certain vibrational quality to different emotions. And what I was finding when I was listening to the work, when the tones would change, when they morph, when they get into a sort of a funny sounding area, that it would evoke a certain emotion in me. And I would say to people, I'm like, oh, this sounds really angry. Were you angry this week? Or, this sounds really sad. Have you been feeling sad? And people kept giving me feedback that was saying, your perception of this is correct because that's relevant to me right now. And,
so let's say that, let me just go to that particular issue. Let's say that you have a tuning fork that you're working with a client with, and you pick up on the anger that they're holding. How do you work with the tuning fork with that?
Well, the tuning fork, the sound, it works two ways, right? I said the sound works diagnostically because it helps me find these areas of distortion or strong emotion or things like that. It's a process. What I'm pretty sure is the physics principles of resonance and entrainment. So initially, the tuning forks will resonate with whatever distortion is present. But then because they produce such a coherent frequency and a strong one, relative to the acoustic outputs of the body, then the coherence will entrain the body into a more coherent expression through what I think is just relaxation, because usually these things are related to tension or holding of some kind. John Beaulieu is a researcher, a pioneering researcher. In fact, I think his book was the first book I ever read. And he started using tuning forks in the 80s. One of the things that he discovered is that tuning forks and certain types of music stimulate the production of nitric oxide in the body. And nitric oxide is a gas that signals the muscles to relax and blood vessels to dilate. So it's potentially stimulating nitric oxide production, which is then generating a relaxation response in the body.
So that's one of the big things in health right now is nitric oxide. So it's interesting that you're bringing this up and how sound can produce that in the body.
Yeah, in this really wonderful way, and this is the way that sound healing works and has worked for millennia. Sound is used to bring people from pain, anxiety, agitation, into a state of sort of relaxed, aware presence. It brings you into here and now and helps you to just settle down out of whatever, whatever you might be holding.
And now, with a lot of alternative medicine, and medicine in general, we can look at certain issues that people have and get diagnosed, and they may get a medication from a traditional doctor, or they may get an alternative treatment from an alternative practitioner. But oftentimes, these things recur. With tuning fork treatment, do you find that happens less, the recurrence of it?
Well, what I've discovered is that ultimately I'm working at the level of mind. When I'm working in the biofield, which is the scientific term for the human energy field or aura, this sort of diffuse magnetic frequency field that surrounds the human body, to me, that's our mind. And the mind is generative. The mind underlies the electrochemical, physical, structure. Disease, so much disease is disease of the spirit. It's disease of the mind. It's patterns of tension. It's false limiting beliefs. It's so much of what I see is, unworthiness or self-punishment. People get, or old traumas, old accidents or injuries can create things. Those can be worked on. Injuries create scar tissue in the energetic body as well, and that can be released and allow things to happen. Just an example that comes to mind is something like anxiety. You can medicate that, but then you're dealing with the symptoms. You're not getting right into the generative cause. So I recently treated a woman who had severe anxiety, and she had for her whole life. And it had been so debilitating. She developed depression around it and a lot of self-judgment about, why she was so anxious. She'd been in and out of therapy and on and off meds. And when she came to see me, I discovered within 5 minutes of having her on the table, 5 feet off of her right knee, was an incredibly distorted area in her field where there was just a huge amount of noise and static. And I said to her, "Did you have an extremely traumatic birth?" And she said, "Yes, I did. I almost died, and my mother almost died, and like the whole delivery room was in an uproar, and it was horrible." And I said, "Well, this is your problem. What happened was in your very first experience of life, your nervous system got bored out all the way up into the red. Like your tachometer was at 9. And so once that pathway was forged, every time you have a stress response, you're going all the way to 9 with it." And so
because it's life and death. I mean, when you're
absolutely
stuck in the birth canal or whatever went on with her, I mean, it is life and death. She knew even then that she might not have made it. So, very interesting.
That's right. And plus the combination of her mom's energy and all the other energy, babies are sponges. And so being able to find the source point in her field, which holds all of your memories in this very specific format, which I've discovered and called the biofield anatomy, and then being able to insert a coherent frequency into that chaotic area, gave her body the opportunity to tune itself, to relax down out of that and start to express itself in a more relaxed, coherent way from the very source of it. So she came back, the next week, and she said, "My anxiety is down by 75%. And
that's a lot.
A lot. And when it comes up, I know what it's related to, and I'm not beating myself up for it, and I'm not having a reaction." And so I ended up seeing her 3 times, and I got an email from her not that long ago and saying, "I just want to tell you, because I haven't touched base since our 3rd session, that my anxiety is completely gone."
Wow.
Completely gone.
That's fabulous.
Right?
Incredible.
So it's a very different approach to find, to work with mind and the source point, getting to the source point in the historical record of the mind.
Well, and especially because, and let me just interject here, I mean, Patricia, you and I have had this discussion before, because Patricia and I work with people to identify their core issues and to help them eliminate them and reach their goals. And that's one of the new things that we've been presenting to people. But one of the discussions we've had with each other and other guests on the show is, what do you do when somebody has pre-verbal memory, which is exactly what you went through with this client, that she had these pre-verbal memories of her birth that were causing her massive anxiety in so many situations. And here you have discovered a technique that will treat that, and that is so powerful, because getting to that is really, I can't think of really any other way to do it. Can you, Patricia?
No.
Not at all. In fact, I was wondering also, is when you mentioned the high max of the color red, do you find at different fields that the color itself makes the issue ongoing either more calm or more willing to kind of like blast off? You always think of red as being going forward in the max of certain things. When you're dealing with when you're dealing with the different parts of the body and you're using the tuning forks, when you come up, do you many times see a color other than the chakra color?
I don't see colors, and I wish I did. I have had students over the years that they see color when they're working. Sometimes I have clients who will see colors behind their eyes, but I'm so auditory and so kinesthetic. Those are my real pathways of perception, and it's one of my goals to be able to see color, to see more. I hope at some point that opens up. But
I'm grateful you see what you see. Fabulous.
Well, and here with this woman, this client that you had, you felt the disturbance in the knee area. But what was it that gave you the tip-off that it was a birth trauma?
Well, so the way that the work evolved was, for 10 years I worked close to the body, and then one day I discovered by accident. I found one of those loud spots that I was moving around. I found a loud spot about 2.5 feet off of somebody's neck, completely by accident. And this person had been complaining that she had a sense of pain and pulling in her jaw and neck and down into her shoulder. And she'd been to all these different therapies and nothing had helped her. And then I, sort of found this loud spot completely by accident and moved it and did the click, drag, and drop thing. It felt really odd to, drag it 2.5 feet all the way to her body. But the same thing happened. It felt like it was sucked in, and, then it was loud over the throat chakra. Well, she called me the next day, and she said, Eileen, all of that pain and pulling in my neck and jaw is totally gone. And I was like, wow, well, that's pretty weird. So the next person that came in, I started with my tuning fork as far away as I could in my room, which was about 6 feet. And I started moving in towards the body on the plane of the treatment table, drawing the fork in towards the body. And I found all kinds of things in the field. I didn't know. I didn't know. I was like, this is the human energy field. What is this? I don't even understand, what this is. But I was finding loud spots and walls and channels and all kinds of curious things. So from then on, I worked doing this sort of field, what I call field combing, and what emerged, and this took years for this whole picture to emerge, but just like our brain is compartmentalized, right, and different parts of your brain are responsible for different functioning, I discovered that the body's energy is compartmentalized, and that I kept finding it's like a storage system of our memories, and it's stored in this very specific format, almost like file drawers. I kept finding all of these sad feelings and sad stories off the left shoulder, and I kept hearing angry things off of the right side of the solar plexus, and frustration off the left hip, and it over the period of about 4 or 5. It's still kind of things. I keep discovering new things. This whole anatomy emerged. And not only these sort of drawer ideas or, compartments, but also this timeline aspect. And the way that I've kind of figured this out, I work with this concept, and you might remember it from the book that I call the mail slot, M-A-I-L.
Yes.
The mail slot. And the mail slot is in the back of my head. and when I'm working, and this is, part of this whole sort of being self-taught, is that when I'm working, sometimes the mail slot will open and a note will drop in. I'll get into an area where the fork sounded funny, and what would come in, I would hear in my head, sadness, age 12. And so I would say to the person, what happened when you were 12 that was really sad? And they'd say, oh, that was when my mom died. And so from getting all of these mail slots, and the mail slot was really accurate. Every time it told me something, and I'd say it to the client would have an immediate corollary to it. So that was how I discovered, okay, everything that's sad seems to be stored here. This is the sad zone. But I also discovered that if something had happened recently, it was close to the body. If something had happened when somebody was really little, it was more out towards the edge of their field. And so I came to see that as we generate information, it's almost like as you go through your day, you're making this constant vibrational readout that gets stored in your field. All your memories get stored almost like in standing waves within this.
It just sounds like, and I don't mean to interrupt, but it begins to sound to me like what you're doing is identifying these stuck areas, but instead of getting rid of it, which I hear a lot of, healers talk about, you're actually helping the person integrate it. So you're bringing it back to the body, back to the chakra. The chakra then is able to digest it, and it just becomes another experience. So there's a big difference in how
recycling energy.
Yes, thank you. Go ahead with that recycling thing. I like that.
Yeah. I think that there's this whole sort of thing we got to get rid of this stuck energy and rid of it's you. It's just the shamanic concept of soul retrieval talks about how when we have traumatic experiences, and we can't integrate them, it's like a part of the soul splits off and like hangs out there until you come back and get it when you're equipped to deal with it. And so, these loud spots, these pockets that I was finding in the field often seem to relate to trauma, and they were like energy was stuck there. So there's like a chaotic pattern in the field that seems to trap energy. Energy, I'm calling it light. Biophotons, maybe. Our body, they've discovered that we do have this sort of light aspect to us. Right. The science of biophotons is very interesting. So to me, it just feels like biophotons, bits of light or information or soul, if you will, that are just trapped back in the past. And the sound helps me to find them, to modulate the frequency that's present, which allows the energy to decouple. And then the tuning forks act almost like a magnet or a broom, and we sort of sweep or comb that energy back into the body where it gets returned and recycled and reintegrated. And when I'm done working with people, most people say they feel lighter, which I think is interesting. And then people seem to have more energy to put towards things in their life. Like one of the things that happens is people will go home and like clean out clutter. Piles of, clean out closets.
Wow, who doesn't need to do
clutter.
that?
Right?
I'm ready for the next session.
Yeah. Yeah, I with and so without.
Do you find that the specific chakras will have a different span of space where the frequency is stronger, one chakra versus another?
Sure. Well, I think sometimes in places where people have run a lot of energy or they have a lot of gifts or strengths, like, people who are speakers or writers or teachers tend to, their throat chakras tend to be louder, than other parts of their body or other energy centers. I wonder if that corresponds to your numerology, too.
Right.
That would be a curious experiment.
Well,
yeah.
When you think about the human body, and you're thinking of vibration, you think of a shadow around the body, and the shadow getting bigger and bigger. And as the shadow gets bigger because of either a stress element that's there that has to come back, is it like the shadow around the body, is that somewhat misshapen because of certain areas being traumatized or under pressure or under stress?
Yeah, definitely.
So that would make a difference of why a person would maybe favor going a certain direction or feeling imbalance at times because of that even being the case, more of an imbalance to them. I know words have an important part of everything we do, and one of the things I try to stress with people is when you say something out loud, you don't realize how much it affects everything around you.
Oh, yeah. Our words are so powerful and so creative. And we, we're not taught that. We don't realize how powerful our words are and how we're creating with them all the time. Yeah. One of the things that I like to say is that, as a sound therapist, I discovered that the most powerful thing in the universe is right under your nose, and it's your mouth.
For good or evil, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, one of the things you talk about in your book that's so fascinating to me is purple washing. And I want you to be able to tell our audience about it. But before we go there, a couple things. We're going to take a short break. But even before that, if anybody has a question for Eileen, please call in at 646-478-0828. Again, that's 646-478-0828. And you can also log into the chat room and type in a question there. We'll be happy to ask Eileen on your behalf anything that's reasonable. So
I like that attitude.
That caveat in there. But stay tuned, everybody, to this continuing wonderful discussion. And Eileen's going to do an audience healing with tuning forks tonight, so you don't want to miss it. So stay tuned.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait. We all need it.
Fabulous.
Yes. So stay tuned, everybody. We're going to be coming right back.
Your property tax bill. Have you seen it lately? It's frightening. Your property taxes are going up while your home value is going down. It's time to fight back and win. For the real truth about the property tax system, get attorney Pat Quintilian's book, Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Attorney Quintilian answers all your questions and gives you the facts you need to fight a property tax bill that is spiraling out of control. You'll also read about what happens to property owners who don't check their property records, only to find out too late they're taxed on square footage, fixtures, and even buildings that they don't own. Is this happening to you? Learn your rights. Buy attorney Pat Quintilian's book today. Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Available on Amazon.com.
Bonjour, this is Veronique Raskin, founder of the Organic Wine Company. As one of the pioneers of the organic wine movement, since 1980 I have brought you the very best and most authentic organic wines directly to your table. I work with small family estates who grow certified organic grapes and produce exceptional wines. You can purchase our wines individually from our website at theorganicwinecompany.com or join one of our wine clubs. Our organic wines are perfect for you and for your family as gifts for friends and relatives, and they are simply spectacular for the holidays. Visit us at theorganicwinecompany.com to enjoy the very best organic wines conveniently delivered to your door. I am Veronique Raskin, passionate about my mission. I offer to you vegan, organic, and biodynamic wines, wines made by people of the heart, wines with a heart. Au revoir. Call us at 1-888-ECO-WINE.
Are you ready for a new experience of freedom and powerful connection? Would you like a positive, effortless change in your life? Then come to CosmicFusion.com, where we offer the most advanced energy clearing and expansion techniques in the world, with a quantum vortex energy to activate your divine blueprint and life's purpose. When your soul leads the way with cosmic fusion and quantum vortex energy, you can break clear of past difficulties and blocks with the power of the source. With cosmic fusion, the source energy does the work for you. It's easy and effortless. Listen to our free meditation right from our Cosmic Fusion website, the Cosmic Code Meditation. Sign up for one of our interactive webinars today. Come to Cosmic Fusion, www.KOSMICfusion.com, to experience an effortless awakening and transformation. Are you ready for an upgrade? Are you ready for a new experience of living in the fifth dimensional magic and powerful connection? Then visit CosmicFusion.com today. CosmicFusion.com.
Welcome back, everyone. We are having a wonderful discussion, Patricia Kirkman and I, with Eileen McKusick, who is the author of a great book called Tuning the Human Biofield, Healing with Vibrational Sound Therapy, available on Amazon.com and probably in your local bookstores. And it is worth buying. It is a great read, and it will give you a whole map of the body and the different aspects of what happens to certain areas when they are out of sync. So, Eileen, here we are. We're going to continue this fascinating conversation. But do tell me, what is purple washing? We all want to hear a little bit about that. I thought it was great the way you described it and named it.
Well, the way that I came up with that was, I have a very interesting perspective on mind and emotions, the human psyche, because of I'm interfacing with them vibrationally. I'm bypass people's conscious minds and get right into their field. So I'm able to find things that they might not be conscious of or that they might not be expressing. And I found that there are certain emotions that people really suppress. Anger, especially with women, people suppress anger. People suppress shame. Shame is an incredibly uncomfortable emotion, and often we would rather suppress it and then like blame other people, and not kind of own our own shame. Hate, rage, and so there's a tendency that, especially with things like anger, for people to sort of skip anger and go right to forgiveness. Or skip anger and have a glass of wine, or eat some chocolate, or eat a half a loaf of bread. There are actually subs called liver pacifiers that people will consume in order to suppress their own experience of their anger, because they want to be good, or they want to be nice, or they want to be spiritual, and it's not spiritual to feel negative emotions, So
that's so true, and isn't that so limiting?
Yeah, it really is. It's really, really limiting. And so where the term purple washing comes from, it's sort of an outtake from greenwashing. Greenwashing is a word that's used to describe like a corporate practice of appearing green, sort of painting a green veneer over a company that might be really not environmentally friendly. So green being the color of the environment. For example, British Petroleum changed their logo to a green sunflower. It's a really great example of greenwashing. They're a petroleum company. They're not environmentally friendly, but for public relations, they want to appear that way, right? So that's greenwashing. So purple washing, purple being the color of spirituality, of higher thinking. And so people who are purple washers, they're kind of painting a veneer over their own ugly stuff, and they do it with addictions, with there's all different kinds of ways that you can suppress emotions. But what you're doing is you're suppressing life force. You're suppressing you, and I've certainly been guilty of it. I think you notice in that chapter I talk about all the different ways that I discovered that I've been a purple washer in my life. For a long time I suppressed anger, and I did it with sugar. Sugar is an incredibly useful liver pacifier. I grew up with a mom who had a crazy temper. When she got angry, she would throw things, and it was terrifying. And so I decided that anger was bad. Anger is bad, and I'm not going to feel that way. And I was having a conversation one day with a woman who was a shamanic counselor, and I was telling her about how I didn't let myself feel jealousy because that was such a base emotion, and I knew better than to feel that. And she said, that's interesting. Why would you not want to feel any of your emotions? I was like, well, that's a really interesting question. Like, why am I making that bad and not allowing it? And what I really come to see in this work is that, every emotion is a wanted emotion. Emotions are really important for us to let them flow. It's the stuff we suppress, whether it's words or truth or feelings, or our emotions. Those are the things that cause the breakdown in health in people. It's what we keep in, it's what we suppress that creates a breakdown in our physiology. And it's the big elephant in the room as far as healthcare goes, because, Western medicine has taken the mind out of the body. I had a friend who had she had an alcoholic husband, and he had done some crazy things, and this one day he did something really crazy that endangered one of their kids, and she got so freaked out by it, and she ended up having like this massive panic attack, and she thought she was having a heart attack. And she went to the hospital, and they ran all of these tests on her, and they kept her in overnight for observation. And then when he said to her, "What's going on in your life? What kind of strong emotions were you feeling? What's happening with you?" Nobody asked her. And it was just she was having an emotional response, a very powerful emotional response. There was nothing wrong with her body. She was 30 years old and healthy. So, most illnesses, whether it's heart disease, whether it's cancer, whether it's all kinds of stuff, has an emotional basis. There's some unhealed trauma there, and emotional suppression that people, we're not taught how to handle our emotions properly. We're just
Isn't that the craziest thing?
Yeah,
I think that's insane.
That way. Mm-hmm.
People.
So we don't have modeling.
Well, we don't have, we teach our children all this other stuff supposedly. We don't teach them anything about emotional intelligence and how to responsibly express our feelings. So children are still left with either good or bad models from their parents, their teachers, and those around us, and unfortunately most of them are bad models. So they never really learn. And, also people don't learn the difference between anger, which is an emotion that lets you know something has to change. That's why we have it.
That's right.
And the difference between that and violence. Violence doesn't come from anger. Violence comes from impotence. So the people that are doing all of this violence, it's really coming from a place of feeling impotent. So we're not feeling the impotence.
Around that violence is the voice of the unheard. And to be unheard is an impotence for sure. We all need to be heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love what you've said in the book and what you're saying tonight. It is so very important, and you're right. Women, as we especially, don't feel comfortable expressing our anger, and it's all those old ways of thinking that it makes us bad girls, as they're a bitch or something like that, when expressing anger is extremely healthy. And again, when it's done responsibly, you're basically owning the anger. I'm feeling angry because I need a change with something, whether it's like you mentioned, this woman's husband who was drinking or needed to stop, and she maybe needed to get away from that whole environment. But there needs to be a change. So all of this is so important, and I love what you've done with the pre-verbal stuff. I love what you're doing, allowing people to basically relax into assimilating these rejected experiences. It's really a powerful thing that you're offering for healing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really efficient, which is what I love, because we get right into it. The tuning forks find immediately, what's going on. And, people always say to me, I've gotten more out of 2 or 3 sessions with you than I did out of years of therapy.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, because we're working with the body, we're working with the mind, we're working with the pattern, and it resolves immediately. And some things it doesn't work for. Something's been really deep in the physiology for a long time. Then that gets harder. It gets harder as people get older. Somebody's over 60, over 65. It's harder to get things to shift. It takes more sessions. It still definitely has an impact. But my favorite age group to work with is like 17 to 24 because, they're still so malleable. And, to take a person that age and help get them centered and balanced and self-aware and coherent, it's going to serve them really well for the rest of their life. So I really like working with that age group. But, I'm happy to work with any age.
How can people reach you, Eileen? What's the best way for them to find you?
So I have a website, which is eileenmckusick.com, and I have a contact page with my email on it. What's neat about this work is that I've started doing it at a distance. And people, people used to ask me, do you do this work at a distance? And I was like, of course I don't do this work at a distance. I'm like, I'm working with physics. Like, this is sound waves on the body. Like, of course it's not happening at a distance. But then the fellow who wrote the foreword to my book, Dr. Carl Merritt, a mentor for me, and he lives in California, I live in Vermont, and he persuaded me to try a distance session on him. So he lay down in his home in California, and I pretended he was on my treatment table, and I approached the table with my tuning forks with a great deal of skepticism, and was completely blown away to discover that the same frequency patterns of resistance, patterns of noise that I find around a real body were actually present in my treatment room.
No
and as I went through
kidding.
I took notes, because there's this whole timeline aspect to the field, right, where the outer edge is gestation, birth, earliest childhood, close to the body is current or recent. Everything else falls in between like rings in a tree. So if somebody's 64, halfway through their field, like 2.5 feet from the body, would be age 32. And so I'm able to determine when I work both in person and at a distance the age at which, certain stressful periods or injuries or that sort of thing happen. And so I was able to determine stressful periods in his life, certain areas of his body that were giving him trouble. I mean, basically everything that I would have figured out that if he was there, I figured out when he wasn't there. And then we talked on the phone, and I, was done, and I said, these are all my notes, and he's like, that's totally accurate. And not only that, he experienced state change as a consequence of it, which totally blew me away. I was like,
so he was able to feel an integration take place from that session?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's great.
Yep.
Fabulous.
And so I've been, since the book came out in September, I've been having, I've been doing more and more of these, and it's like a science at this point, because I have such a deep understanding of what these different frequency signatures mean and the different areas of that I can actually go through. So not only am I doing a healing on people, but I'm giving them a very detailed reading of their life history, their relationship with their parents, you had a head injury when you were 12, like all of these things. Everybody really loves to hear about themselves. So it's always really exciting when somebody you don't know, who's just been waving tuning forks around your etheric body, calls you and gives you this whole rundown about.
Can you do something like this when, we'll just say, if a person wanted to do this for one of their children, and the child is not necessarily a youngster, but say a teen later, can you work with that person without them being aware that you're working on them?
So I generally prefer to not do that. Like I think that it's better all around for everybody, that everybody's on the same page. Like I think it's that meeting of intention with intention.
Right.
Because otherwise getting into, you know what I mean? It's sort of some boundary stuff. And I think when you do this kind of work and you can affect people so powerfully from a distance, it's really important to be really ethical with what you do.
Well, what I'm thinking of is that, sometimes there are people that are so against any type of help that's different. And if someone could, bring it enough of it about so that they can get, shall we say, a taste of it, and then be told afterwards, this has taken place now. Are you ready to go for the rest of it?
I still don't think I would do it. I think I would.
Just curious.
I need somebody to be on board with me.
I'm sure I'm not going to be the only one that's going to think about that.
Oh, yeah. No, I understand exactly why. Yeah. Yeah, because there are some stubborn people out there who really need a lot of help, and the question becomes, how do you get to them and give them that when they're hard-headed? So I can understand, Patricia, why you're asking that question, and so. But I understand your response too, Eileen, and yet you also train people how to do this, right?
I do, yeah. I do train people, and you can learn it in a weekend. It's actually a really simple practice. It's basically the one movement. It's basically click, drag, and drop. That's really all that it is. It's the way that it's evolved is that I start at 1 foot, 6 feet off that foot, and I comb in. I go chakra by chakra. So I do the feet, the knees, the 7 major chakras. I go up one side of the body and down the other, just combing the field. And, initially when people learn, there's the logistics of, like, striking the tuning fork, which is actually harder than you might think it is, like activating a tuning fork with a hockey puck. And then trusting themselves enough when they get into an area of distortion or resistance, to trust their own senses. I mean, people always say to me, are you psychic? And I'm like, I don't think that I'm psychic. I was looking at your guys' show, and it's supernatural and paranormal. I did a post on Facebook that I was on it, and I said, although I would like to say that what I do is neither supernatural nor paranormal, but rather natural and normal, I don't think I'm psychic. I think that we all read vibes. We've all had the experience of getting a good vibe off somebody, getting a bad vibe off somebody, going into a room where there's just a fight and feeling that energy. I just pay really closer attention than most people, and I trust my feedback.
But also, you have a lot of energy that when I looked at your name, and I know, Patricia, you looked at Eileen's name also.
Yes, I did.
You have a lot of body-to-body intuition, so you actually have a tremendous gift where you can feel what that body is feeling, which for a lot of people that's a curse because they don't know how to separate that out. What's my feeling?
Oh, it took me years to figure it out. I mean, it took me years to figure that out.
But some of the best massage therapists have a similar vibration to you because they can feel what other people are feeling. I mean, you feel it in your body. So it's a wonderful use of that gift that you have. So it doesn't also drive you nuts.
Right, yeah. So it's a great profession for sensitive people.
It is, and again, you are such a great pioneer, Eileen. I mean, what you have done is truly remarkable in how you've identified these things, and you say you're not psychic and you're not paranormal. Well, remember, too, I have to say, our tagline is where paranormal is normal. So,
good. Right. I missed that.
That's right. So, that's how we feel. That's how we feel about all of this, and that's also why we invited you on the show, because even though this is not a strictly ghost subject or vampire subject or Bigfoot subject, which we all love those things too, this is an opportunity for people to have an exposure to an entirely different healing modality. And we like to have this type of information out there for our audience.
And it's important, very important.
Yeah. It is.
Do you have different size tuning forks that you use, or is there a specific size that you use?
Yeah. So when I started, I was using that harmonic spectrum set, and there are 8 forks in that set. In 2008, I started using a 9-fork solfeggio set. And then at one point, not long after that, I had my own custom set made based on sacred geometry, like specific numbers from sacred geometry, because I did quite a lot of study in that area. And so I was using I was using up to 30 forks in a session for a while. A whole sort of turn of events, and I talk about this in my book. I started breaking my tuning forks. I started because my practice became so busy. Even though I was part-time for a long time, what was happening was, I was helping people solve their problems. So if somebody comes to you with a problem and you help them solve it, they go and tell their friends, oh, you have that problem, you should go see Eileen. And so my practice was getting busier and busier, and my forks were getting more and more use. And they started wearing out. You know how guitar strings will wear out and you need to replace them?
Right.
So my forks started to wear out, and they developed a buzz to them. And so, and then I went through this period when I was writing my book, when I was trying to write my book and have a practice and be a mom, and I was also teaching. So many things going on. I was trying to do it all. And my forks started breaking like crazy. They started breaking so much that I actually had to stop seeing clients, and which was a good thing, because I never would have been able to write my book in time without stopping. So some part of me knew that I needed to stop seeing clients, and somehow managed to break those forks. It was kind of a mystery. It's sort of weird almost. But as that fork breaking was going on, I kept ending up with fewer and fewer forks to use because they were breaking. And so the process actually simplified itself, because what I discovered was that I could get the same outcome with less forks, that I didn't need all of that. And so now I only use 2 different forks. Come in 2 varieties. They come in what are called unweighted forks, which is if you imagine a tuning fork, it's sort of your standard tuning fork for tuning an instrument or something. Those are the unweighted ones. So I use 2 of those, and they are 2 forks from the solfeggio set, 174 hertz, and I also use a 528 hertz fork. And then I have 2 weighted forks, and they have these metal barrels on the end. And the weighted forks are designed to be used by placing the handle of the vibrating fork on different acupuncture points or trigger points, places on the body. So there's just 4 forks that I use now in my practice, 2 weighted and 2 unweighted.
Amazing what you can do with 4 forks. Incredible.
Yeah, and it's actually, I've set it up so that if somebody just wanted to use 1 fork, they could. You could just use the 174 hertz fork and still get good outcomes with this fork. So simple is good.
Yes, it is. Now, are you ready to do a healing for our audience with tuning forks?
Yes, I have my tuning fork in my hand.
All right. Well, we're going to hand it over to you for the next few minutes, and we're just going to listen.
Good. Okay. So what I came up with when Patricia called me a few days ago, and we were talking about about the show, getting ready, and I had been thinking about how I've discovered through this work that, the whole sort of New Age thinking is that you create your reality, and that you're responsible for the creation of your reality and your life. And what I'm discovering is that that's really not true, because you are influenced powerfully by everything that came before you. You are influenced by, there's been some articles going around on the internet about how, your genes carry information from your grandparents. If your grandmother, was in a famine, and then your mother developed an eating disorder, and that's why you have this binge eating thing, because it was set in motion years ago. We were talking earlier about those sort of in utero or birth or pre-verbal traumas that form powerful subconscious behaviors that we have no control over. And so I think a lot of people go around feeling guilty that they're not able to create the life that they're looking for, because this notion that you create your reality actually puts you in isolation. It makes you an island that's separate from your ancestors, that's separate from your past, that's separate from the fact that we actually co-create each other. The environment that you're in, the town that you live in, the climate that you live in, the people you hang around with, everything is influencing you. We're not islands. We're really part of a big unified field that goes backwards and forwards in time. And what this has made me realize is that we're all trying to heal separately. Even though we've been created collectively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And really, where I think the most powerful healing can come from is us unifying. We were talking about that sense of isolation at the beginning, right? And how people feel isolated, especially people in the spiritual community, especially people who, are interested in this sort of thing. People feel isolated, and they're trying to create the reality all by themselves, and it's not working. But the power of us linking up and connecting and intending together, like this distance work has given me such interesting insight into, I can heal people through intention at a distance with sound, and have powerful outcomes. What happens if we all hook up together and have intention and use sound? What can we do then? I think I'm only just beginning to scratch the surface of what's possible here.
Yes,
and I think this whole sort of new age belief of you create your reality is a blind alley that a lot of people go down. And it just leads to a lot of guilt and impotence, because you're like, why am I not creating this powerful,
yes, I've heard this before.
Healthy body?
We've heard this on the show a lot of times, and people say they have the answer to that. But, yeah, it's like, well, you are what you think, and so think better thoughts, you can have a better life, and it's so much more than that.
It's so much more than that. So much more than that. Because so much, with this woman who had this anxiety, right? She could think better thoughts till the cows came home, and nothing was going to change what was going on in her nervous system from her birth experience. And it wasn't her fault. It's not that she was beating herself up and had all this depression. It was her fault somehow that she couldn't think her way out of it, or, exercise her way out of it, or whatever. So I think that's really misleading and dangerous thinking. And I think that, we need each other. We need a kind of a collective effort. The human sickness of the mind runs so deep, and we're all carrying around generations of it, just generations of all kinds of pain and suffering. And it's all active in all of our conscious, subconscious minds and our DNA. And we didn't get into it by ourselves. So I'm really interested in how we can connect in groups and use sound and intention for healing. So I thought it would be fun to do that tonight, and just a really simple one. I'm going to activate the tuning fork, and a lot of when people tone, often we do it in groups. We do Om, but I was recently at an event where somebody encouraged us to tone Hu. And it was just such a different experience to go Hu than Om. So I thought it would be fun to just do a few of those together and to send out that intention into the world for healing for all of us, for healing for the whole human family. One of the other pieces about this that's really important is that when I first started doing this work, I discovered that underneath everybody's noise and static and heavy energy and undigested stuff and drama and emotions and blah, blah, blah. Underneath all of that, once that was cleared, there was a pure harmonic tone in everyone. Underneath the noise was harmony. And in that harmony there was greatness. And I'd come home and I'd say to my husband, that person I worked on today, they were just great. And I kept saying that. And he's like, what, is everybody great? And I was like, I think everybody's great. And then I was like, why am I having so much cognitive dissonance around this? Like, why am I having such a hard time accepting what my own senses are telling me? That underneath people's noise and static, there's clarity, and there's harmony, and there's beauty and greatness. And I realized, after thinking about it, that I was raised in a religion-free home, but we're all raised in a kind of a Christian culture. You know, in North America, it's just sort of, you know, the standard model. And the mythology, the creation story, the cosmology is that we were cast out of the garden and we were guilty sinners. We've fallen from grace. And we had this sort of original sin, and especially women, because it was her fault. You know, she blew it.
Yeah, and right.
So, you know,
we get blamed.
This idea that humans were fundamentally flawed was like deeply embedded in my psyche. And to find, without me even realizing it, and so to find this harmony underneath just blew me away. And I find it in everybody all the time now. And so I know that we all have the blueprint of harmonic perfection in us, at least everybody I've worked on so far. And I've worked on hundreds and hundreds of people at this point. I mean, I'm assuming that, you know, that's our essential blueprint. And we're all walking around under the illusion that we're guilty sinners, that we're not worthy, that we're not good enough. Everybody's got this punishing inner critic that's telling them that all the time, and all this genetic noise. And we think we're our noise. And to actually align with the harmony and beauty underneath and own that is really hard to do. So,
it really is, with all the noise.
Yeah.
And I like what you say. We think we are our noise. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. We self-refer to our noise, and we think that's who we are.
Right.
And, you know, it's a pretty bold thing to self-refer to your amazingness. Be like, I'm amazing. I'm great. I'm harmonic. You know, how many people walk around thinking that? But that's what's really true.
Well, and it's a lot easier to feel that way when you have anxiety released and all of these other things that have been distorting your field out of the way. It makes it so much easier. So it's a real benefit what you're offering to your clients. And now to us in the audience, yay!
Yeah,
definitely.
So let's do it. So I'm going to do this twice. So I'm going to activate the tuning fork. I'm going to hold it in front of the speaker, and I'm going to tone cue as long as my breath will allow. I'll do that twice. And I invite you to do that with me. And then we're also going to hold the intention of humanity discovering its own harmonic perfection, of nice. however long that takes, because I know it's there, and I know that it's possible to get there now that we have a technique that can help people to get there. And I think this is only the beginning of this sort of using sound in the biofield to really bring things into harmony on a really deep level. So, good. Okay, here we go. One more, just for fun. Okay.
That's very lovely. I mean, I can feel the power of that just sitting here and listening to you with the tuning fork and the chant. It's impressive.
See how much stronger it got with each one.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Beautiful.
Nice. Yeah, I feel better too just from doing it. That's the neat thing about this work. You know?
Can you be our first call in the morning from now on?
Now, I do have a question for you, Eileen. Thank you so much for giving us that gift. And from the chat room, here is a question. Somebody would like to know, what is the tone of the weighted forks that you were talking about?
Well, the weighted forks that I sell on my website, you can. I have my own little special line of these 4 forks that I had made. And the 2 forks that I use are they are harmonics of the Schumann resonance. Are you guys familiar with the Schumann resonance?
Yes, but tell our audience about that.
Sure. So, in any given second, there's approximately 50 lightning strikes happening at any place around the globe. So there's this kind of constant electrical activity that's happening on the surface of the Earth. And what it does is it produces a background sort of standing wave within the ionospheric cavity. So we know that like radio waves bounce off the ionosphere and sort of then bounce around within the atmosphere. So the continual electrical activity around the Earth produces a standing wave of about 7.8. 7.83 hertz is also in the range of a brainwave state and of what is on the alpha-beta cusp, which is a place of meditative awareness, sort of a quiet presence. So it's a beneficial brainwave state to be in. And if you think about how, there's this background pulse of 7.83 hertz going on, but if your brainwave is at that, then you are in vibrational alignment with the Earth, And one of the things that shows how important this frequency is to our health is when they first started sending astronauts up into space, they were getting space sickness. And I don't know how they figured this out, but they ended up putting these Schumann wave generators on these spaceships, and people stopped getting space sickness.
Wow.
So the theory is that our pineal gland, which is in your brain, is composed of about 30% magnetite, which is a mineral that responds to magnetic fields and magnetic energy, and that this 7.83 hertz and its higher harmonics seems to influence our own natural rhythms. And when we're not exposed to it, our rhythms start to go kaflooey. So it's a really important frequency for health and for brain and for nervous system. Your nervous system is electrical. So anytime you have a fundamental frequency, you also have overtones, and they are multiples of the fundamental. You've got a 100 hertz tuning fork, and you activate it, you're going to hear 100 hertz, but then you're also going to hear 200, 300, 400, and so on, multiples. So what I did, you can't have a 7.83 hertz tuning fork. One, because it's such a low frequency you wouldn't hear it, but two, it would be about 6 feet long. So
wow.
It's impractical to have that. But what I decided to do was to create a tuning fork that was one of the harmonics of the Schumann resonance. And so I played around with different multiples, so 7.83 times 7 times 8 times 9, and I had all of those tuning forks made specially for me. And I started playing with them. And my very favorite one is the 62.64 hertz, which is the 8th harmonic of the Schumann resonance. I've played with different forks, like a 64 hertz fork is a pretty commonly used fork. It's called auto tuner. And when you use a 62.64 and then you use a 64, it's a totally different experience. And everybody is like, wow, I just like the 62.64 so much better. It just feels more powerful, more useful. I'm always looking for things that are useful and efficient, and produce outcomes. So
you have these for sale then on your website. So if people would like to buy them, they can get them directly from you at eileenmckusick.com. And then they can also study with you. Now, do you do online classes, or do you have to be there in person?
I don't do online classes yet. I do classes of about 10 people. They have to be small because you're getting personalized hands-on instruction and exactly how to do the click, drag, and drop technique. So I do teach. I'm teaching in California coming up in the spring and the winter. My calendar hasn't quite taken shape yet for this year. Lots of changes have happened with the book coming out, and things are kind of up in the air. I'm also in a Ph.D. program. It's not so easy to do it all. So,
oh my goodness, yeah.
sometime in the next month or two, there'll be more classes posted. And I do, we'll travel to teach. Like if people really want to organize a class somewhere and have me come, I'm up for that, coming for a weekend to teach a group of about 10 is a good size. Yep.
Yeah.
And then, if you just want to do it to play around with like friends and loved ones, if you have a practice and you just want to start to integrate the forks, I have instructional videos for sale on my website too. So the book actually gives you pretty detailed instructions on how to do the work. And if you combine that with watching these instructional videos, you can get a good sense, enough to get started with it.
That's wonderful.
Well, that's terrific. Yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful to be able to have some options here. And if people want to get really serious about it, then they should just contact you for arranging a class. But, I have to say, Eileen, you're very talented, and I think that you have a special gift when it comes to this. So it's amazing to hear how you've been able to put all of this together. And, again, your book is fabulous, and I highly recommend it to people who are interested in healing for themselves and others, because you've really nailed it in a lot of ways, and especially when you talk about the unfelt and repressed feelings and the power of that and how it can make your life go way off track if you don't pay attention and start integrating these things. Because my sense of emotion is it's rocket fuel. And all it takes, is one little trip, and that rocket fuel in a cup goes spilling, and you've just immolated yourself. I mean, it's not pretty. So it makes a lot of sense to do some work with emotion and learning how to respond to your own emotions, and that they are your own emotions. They're not for anybody else.
Yeah, but they're valid.
They're very valid. But I love what you're doing about the things that are caught in the energy field. And Patricia, you and I both know how that happens, and then it's terrible because people get stuck. It's kind of like somebody plinking away on a piano and they're off key, and it just won't stop. So you're able to help that.
Absolutely. One of the best ways that I describe what I do is I pull people out of ditches. Because we get stuck in particular patterns of thought and action and perspective. And, I think the biggest thing to probably treat is stuckness and help people get out of their own way, get the rubber on the road and kind of get back on top of things in their life.
Well, that's so true. That's exactly what you're doing. I have one more question before we let you go tonight from the chat room, and it's about the when you replace or when you integrate the stuck piece. And I know I saw this also in one of your videos. You were talking about is a vortex, that everything spirals. Now, when it gets integrated, they want to know the direction. How is the spiral that you perceive? Is it something where it's like a funnel that goes right back into the body or into the chakra? Is that what it looks like?
It is. It's kind of like a funnel. And it's really interesting because when you're bringing stuff in, it can actually get sort of stuck on the outer edge of the funnel. So it's really important to be really precise about making sure that you get it all the way in. It's like a little vortex, and as long as you get it the energy close enough, then it will be drawn in. But one of the things that I teach in my class is that, you have to be really careful and really thorough around that last bit to make sure you get it. It's like little magnetic particles, You just have to get them. It's curious. Teaching it is curious because we're working with something that's invisible and subtle, but it's very real. If there's a definite substance to it. And people are always amazed to discover that they can feel the resistance and that they can perceive moving the energy and that they have a sense of it going back and being integrated into the body.
This is going to sound silly, but does it go clockwise or counterclockwise?
I think that chakras spin in both directions. I think there's an aspect that spins clockwise and also an aspect that spins counterclockwise because they're information pathways, so we're sending information out and also receiving information in.
Okay, that makes good sense.
Yeah.
So it works in both directions. Now, I liked your question, Patricia, and when you do reintegrate, when you reintroduce this piece that's been stuck, do you see it spinning, or do you sense it spinning in any particular direction or not?
I don't. I'm not aware of spin. Once it's introduced back into the body, it seems to be distributed. Like sometimes people will have a sense of warmth spreading from there, or energy. They'll be like, oh, I feel energy moving down my legs, or the body knows what to do with it. So when I'm moving it, it sort of feels sort of inert, like I don't get a sense that it's spinning when I'm moving it. And when I put it in the chakra, it just, I don't see it. You know what I mean? Like I don't see it go down the drain clockwise kind of thing.
Right,
so.
right. Oh my goodness. Well, this hour and a half has gone way too fast.
Yes, it has.
It's just been a wonderful conversation with you, Patricia, and with you, Eileen. A great evening, and I thank you, Eileen, so much for coming on to the show and sharing all of this very valuable and profound information with our audience. It's terrific, just terrific what you're doing.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's fun.
Good. Well, we like to have fun, and we're going to continue to have fun in 2015. So, anyways, we've got more shows on healing coming up. We have more shows on the paranormal, hardcore. So we've got it all. So make sure everybody keep tuning in every Wednesday night, 7:30 to 9. And thank you again, Eileen. You've just been terrific. Appreciate it so much. And everybody stay warm on the East Coast and Midwest and anywhere else that you are, except Tucson, where Patricia's already.
I'll send tomorrow for you, I suppose.
Thank you so much. Okay, everybody.
This was delightful.
Wasn't it great? It's just always so much fun, this show, but tonight was really special.
She's got so much information that's been shared with us. The book itself was exciting, but listening to her talk about it, even more so.
Oh, yes. Eileen really brings it to life, and it's great. The work she's done, she's a real master. And I think she doesn't realize how much of a master she is. She's great. So thank you again, Eileen, and thank you for listening, everybody, and we'll be back next week.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with Supernatural Girlz.